Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a Muqarnas in Rhino 8, and I'm going to show you different levels of complexity from very simple to more advanced. And this is a geometric involving system that you can find throughout North Africa, Middle East, Spain, modern-day Iran, Central Asia, South Asia. And so there's many different types and many different levels of complexity. But if you can understand the actual principles of how to create the geometry, then you can create any level of complexity when it comes to Muqarnas. And I hope I can show this to you in this video, where I will show you from simple to advanced. I'm also going to just also show you the construction methods of how they were created, but I just want to go straight into actually creating this, and then I'll explain along the way. The beauty of the Muqarnas is that you can create any geometry, or I guess you can create any geometric pattern that you like, but you want to create a system for yourself. And if I quickly just come to this picture here, right? Let me just scroll down to give credit where credit's due. So you can just see the credit here. But if we go here, you can create any geometric pattern that you like. I think this is like a 10-pointed star, right? That's shifting on each level, right? And then down here, you see how this looks a little bit different, right? So this is a mausoleum in Syria, but this one has a different geometric pattern, right? Compared to this one, where it's just, I guess, like a 10-pointed star. And then things can get more advanced, right? So let me just scroll down here again. I just want to give credit. But you see, you can start to play around with like sub-geometries, where you start to add geometries within geometries. And so that's what I'm basically going to do in this video. I'm going to show you a simple Muqarnas aggregation and then a more complex Muqarnas aggregation like this. And I want to show you, once you understand the actual methodology, it doesn't matter how complex or how simple it is. It's the control, you have the control basically. So let me just go back into Rhino and we can just start creating a geometry. Okay, so here we are in Rhino. The first thing that we want to do is, I actually have these layers already set, but you can ignore these layers. We'll make new ones. But what we want to do is you want to first decide on the kind of geometry you want to make, whether you want to make like an octagonal geometry or a star geometry. Most of the time in Islamic patterning, when it comes to architecture, you typically see a combination of a star geometry and some type of polygonal geometry that's either 8-sided or 10-sided. So you typically see like a 10-sided star with like a 10-sided with a 10-sided, I guess a decagon is what you would call it, like a decagon with a 10-pointed star, or a 8-pointed star with an octagon. So that rule is completely up to you. Whatever pattern you want to make, that's completely up to you. I've created these layers here, and I'll tell you what they mean, but OB means like outer boundary. So like outer boundary 1, outer boundary 2, and you'll see what that means. So the first command that we're going to do is Polygon. So I'm going to type in Polygon, and I'm going to select the star option, okay? I'm going to select the star option. And you see here number of sides, that means how many points do you want the star. So I want to make an 8-pointed star. Center of star, it doesn't matter where you click unless you have a very specific reference point. So I'm just going to click anywhere. And then I have a distance. I'm going to use 12 feet, okay? And so if I have ortho on, it's going to be straight, right? If you don't have ortho on, you can hold shift as well, and it'll make it straight. If you don't make it straight, then the star is going to be angled, right? So I want to make sure my star is straight. So I'm going to press enter, right? Now, you can decide the angle of the edges of your star. If you want it by default like a right angle, you just press enter again, and it by default will make it a right angle, okay? Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I want to copy this, but I want to rotate it. So if I do rotate, and I want to select this, and I select the copy, yes, I want the center, I want it to be copied, right? I'm going to snap to the center, and I'm going to snap from this corner to this corner right here, like that, and press enter. Okay, great. So I'm going to take this star, and I'm going to hold shift and just snap to there. You see? And I'm going to change this to OB2, outer boundary 2. So outer boundary 1, outer boundary 2, okay? And so now I just want to scale each of these down. So I'm going to take this to these two. I'm going to hold Shift and Alt, and then make a copy like that. You see? And so this one I'm going to change to outer boundary 3, change this one to outer boundary 4. You need to be very organized in your layering so that it'll help you distinguish things, right? And then I can repeat it one more time. Depends how many times you want to do it, right? So I can hold Shift and Alt, and let go, and outer boundary 5. Okay? So we have this pattern here, all right? What I want to do next is I'm going to duplicate this. Now, I want to tier each of these up. So if I go here in my perspective view, just so you see what's going on, right? I want this as a reference. Now, the way you stack it up is up to you. Based on construction methods, if you were going to corbel it, you know, like a Corbelling method, that's going to be based on the height of your masonry, right? If you're going to do like the plaster lattice work method, which again, I'll go into detail later, you can make it any height you like, you know? It just depends on the aesthetics that you're going for. So I'll just go ahead and lift each of these up like 2 feet for now, okay? So I'll just type in 2 feet. I'll deselect that, 2 feet, deselect this. Oops. 2 feet, deselect that, 2 feet, okay. So once you achieve this, all you need to do is pick a portion of your pattern to connect with your geometry. And once you have that, then you just start to mirror. And you're basically done. What's important to understand is you decide how you want to connect. You decide your connection. When it comes to like actual historic methods, obviously they're going to do the method that is the least waste of material and the less laborious, I guess, in terms of actual construction method and making it work. So I want to show something else on here. So if we go here, right, this is what they would call like a squinch. It's in between each of the Muqarnas, they'll call like a cell, and this is like a little squinch tile. So if you look at it in section right here, or in elevation, like what this actual photo is doing, right? If you look at it, it's flat and then it curves up. Because in elevation, this is one like layer of geometry, and then it's connecting up to the next layer of geometry. So if we go back to Rhino real fast, it's basically, you know, if this was a straight line up, then it's connecting like this, right? But it has a very strong tangent, and then it connects, okay? And some Muqarnas are massive, they're huge, and others they're quite short. But it's really up to you with how you want to create your network. I'm making these quite large so you can understand and really look at it. In real life, some are actually quite large as well. They're very, very big, and others are quite small. So it's really up to the designer and how you want to build these. So this here, but by rule, like by actually like historic rule, this used to be like a flat edge, right? Like if we drew like a right angle, this would come to like, you know, a tangent like that. That's how they did it by default. But in Rhino, I'm just going to show you like a very simple way of doing it. So if I draw a line and I select the vertical option, right? I can go up here and I want to snap to here. Okay. And let me just go ahead and copy this line. So I want to copy this line right here as well. And let me copy right here. Okay. All I need to do is really model just this portion here, okay? If we go to this example right here, this is a really great example. This is basically a 10-pointed star that's rotating. So do you see how in here, this one is basically concave, it's going in, and this is like convex, right? So if you see from this point, it's going out like this, right? So you basically have like a flat, then it starts to bend, right? And then here it's going flat and it starts to bend. And then this part is an actual flat face. That's flat. And this is flat. The same thing here. If you notice, this is bending, right? That's bending. And then it's straight right here. So this is like perfectly straight. Even like this is perfectly straight. And then it starts to curve in. It starts to curve in. So there's different levels of like curvature to these, right? And then this piece is like a flat piece right here. And this is a flat piece right here. You see? And then it's just repeating. So if we go back to Rhino. So I could technically go up, right? And I can arc like that, right? And I can go up and I can arc like that if I wanted to, and I can arc like this if I wanted to. That's an option. So I can go from here, I can go from here, right? I can go from there, and I can go from here. That's option one, if I wanted to do that. So then this here would be flat, right? And then this would be curved down, this would be curved down, and this would be flat. But I personally don't like that geometry. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add another one down the middle right here on the midpoint. Okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from here to here, right? And then from here to here. And then from here to here, like this. So it'll look something like that, like this. And then that's going to curve down. This is going to curve down. And then I just start mirroring it, okay? So there's a couple ways of doing this. So if I draw a line, let me just draw a line from here to here. Okay? The one way, the fastest way I can do this, which isn't like the most accurate, right? It's not going to be the most accurate, but it's very fast. I can just do the control point curve, the very first one, the control point curve, and I can just, click at the end point here, and at the midpoint here, and at the top point here, and I can go all the way across if I wanted to, like that. You see? I'll get a slight tangency here, so that's an option, right? I can also play around with these points, right? I can pull this one down more, right? And I can pull these two up more, right? So that's an option. That's an option. I could also connect it here. So I could again do this midpoint up here, midpoint, and click there. So it looks more like this. That's also another option. Okay? So there's a lot of ways of doing it. So that's an option. Another way is I can do like an arc and select the tangent option, and I can go like from here to here. You see? Depending where I want the tangency to end. Right? And it'll be like that, and that's just straight going completely across. So that's another option that you can do. If you want it to be more flat, I would recommend doing like the arc tangent option, right? And finding your tangency on here. Because this gap is so big, that's why it looks like this. In like real life, you would probably create a geometry that has some type of transition here so that this isn't so big. But I'm just doing this just for example purposes. And when I show you the more advanced option, you're going to see what I mean. So I'll do but I'm just going to do this method for now because it's the easiest. So I'm going to go here and do the same thing. Snap here, mid, here, and snap there like that. You see? And I can honestly take this, right? And I can just select this point here like that, and I can hold Alt on my gumball and just drag that there like this. So I have this. You see? And so what I can do is I can select this and just loft. I like to do straight sections for this and do OK. And then I can take this and loft, right? And I can take this and loft. You see? So if I look at it in here, this is what I'm getting. And then what I'll do is I'll select this, and I'll just mirror like that. Then I can just select these. You can group it or join it, depending how you like it, how you like to do it, right? And then you'll just start to mirror across everywhere. Like that, right? You take this. I forgot to select the other one, but you see? So you'll get that as your base. Again, in real life, it would be much more straight here, and then it'll start to curve. But I mean, these are actually these are very large, you know? These are, you see these are like quite big, you know? So, but again, they have a larger straight before it starts to bend. But the bend is also quite large as well on these. Like if you see, I wish I could scroll down more, but the distance from here to here is quite large, you know? So when it's curving down, you see there's a huge curve there. Huge curve here. So that's that. Let me go back to shaded. And then it's the same thing on this one, right? So if I go here, draw a line, vertical, right? And then line, vertical, like this, and line, vertical. I can copy these, but I just want you guys to get used to the commands. Right? This is what we want. So it'll be the exact same thing, right? So if I go here, it'll be this to this to this, right? I could technically copy this here, right? And use my gumball and move that there. Use my gumball again, hold Alt and drag this here, like that. So we have something like this, right? And then I'll just loft it. Loft that. Loft this. Loft that. You see? And then I'll just mirror it from here. To there. Like that. I like to change the colors for every layer so it just helps me organize it. Like this. Right? And then you can just go ahead and mirror. And you'll just keep repeating the same process over and over again. It's the same thing over and over again. I just forgot to mirror these, that's all. Let me go to rendered. You see? So like if you look at the patterning, right? This one is going in, whereas this one is flat. That's flat. That's flat, and that curves in. And then this is flat wherever this goes in. So these transition pieces are important, right? These are like considered the transition pieces. And there's different ways of doing the transition pieces. Again, this was my decision of how I wanted to connect the geometries. You don't have to do it that way. You can do it a lot of other ways. Like, for example, I could have technically went from here to here and we'll go from here to here. And then this is a transition piece. Let me just show you. So if I draw a line vertical, right, go from here to here, I can do this, right? I can go from there to there, right? I can just take this, hold that in my gumball, and drag it like this. You see? And so if I draw a line vertical here, I can loft this and that, and I can loft this and this, like that, and I can loft this and this. Oops, excuse me. So in this scenario, what you would want to do, there's a couple of options. I could sweep this down, right? So if I do like a P line, I'm not being accurate right now. I should be very accurate, but I'm just, because I just want to show you the major principles. If I do sweep 2, and this is my first rail, and this is my second rail, and this is my geometry that I want to sweep, I can get something like this, right? Maybe I'll get something like that. That's an option, right? If I go to rendered, it'll look like this. You see the difference? How I'm breaking it up? So it's an option. It depends how you want to connect the geometry. That's all. I like it like this. I like to break up the geometry more by going at the midpoints. So I'm going at the midpoint of the flat to the corner, midpoint of the flat to the other corner. I think it just looks cleaner, and it helps break up the geometry into smaller cells or modules. Okay? So you just repeat that. So that's it. Once you do that, you just repeat the process over and over again. And once you hit the top, what you can do is you can go to a point if you want to close it off. So if I do a point, and let me turn my center snap back on, and I just go point, and you go to shaded, right? I can lift that point up the same, right? And if I do line vertical, right? It'll be the exact same thing. But it's really up to you if you want to do the midpoint at this stage, because it's so small, right? I could go from here to here to here to there, right? Here to here to here. And I don't have to I don't have to do the mid if I don't want to. I can just loft these two like that, right? And then just start to mirror and go all the way around. So once you do that, right, once you do what I just did, you'll end up with something that looks like this. You see? That's how it'll look like. And that's how it'll look like from the inside. Okay, let's say you want to do something more complex. Let's say you want to add a tertiary geometry, right? So if this is the primary geometry, right, and that's the secondary, you can add a third layer to it, okay? So let me just show you a good example. This is a madrasa in Uzbekistan, and this is such a great example. It's called the Abdul Aziz Khan Madrasa, and it is beautiful, obviously, but like what's so beautiful about it is you see like 5 different types of muqarnas in here. So it's a really great learning tool. What I love about this one is you see how you get a star geometry within a star geometry. So it's showing you all of the rules of a muqarnas, of how they're connecting, like the lattice network and the framework. it's fantastic. It's a fantastic learning tool. And so you see like the different types of star shapes, right? How they're basically like sweeping or lofting their geometry to the next geometry. So this is a fantastic learning tool because everything is like color coded for you. But it's a super cool example. Same thing here. Like you'll see different types of Muqarnas examples here. You know, like each niche has a different type. So let's say you want to do something like this. We're not going to make this exactly like it, but we're going to do something more advanced than what we just did. Okay? So let's just do the exact same thing. Let me go here. Let me go to top view. So we'll start off by creating an octagon. So we'll do the Polygon command again. And make sure your number of sides is 8. And I'll start here. I'll do 12 feet. Okay, great. And then the next thing I'm going to do is actually draw a line. I'm going to go from this midpoint to here. And I'm going to create another polygon, but I'm going to do a star, which is also 8-sided. And I'm going to go from here and select this midpoint here and press enter to accept the defaults. Let me just go ahead and just have this duplicated here for now. And then I'm going to do trim, and I'm going to go ahead and just trim that off like that. And then I'm going to do array polar. And I'm going to array this around. So I'll do from the center right here to, and the number of items, I want 8. And I want to go from here and then just press enter to accept the defaults. Okay, and press enter again. Okay. And then from here, so I can trim this off if I wanted to, right? I can trim this off if I wanted to. Let me just go ahead and select it and group it. I might go ahead and trim it off just because I don't want it to look confusing. I could also just do the curve Boolean command as well, but I'll just trim this off. It doesn't take that long. Okay, great. So we have something that looks like this. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this. So if I do rotate and make sure I have the copy on yes, and I'll do center. I gotta hit the center somewhere. Let me turn my center snap on, maybe that'd be helpful. There's way too many centers on here, that's why it's not gonna snap to it as easily. So let me just do this. Let me just draw a line from here to here and rotate. I should have put a point to begin with. Let me just go from here and go to there like that. And then I'm going to scale this down, okay? So I can use the gumball to scale it, or I can just scale it by reference. So if I do scale from this midpoint here to here, like that, right? And then I can go and go to outer boundary, make that outer boundary too. I could, let me try to scale by gumball for the repeats. So if I hold Shift and Alt and let go, like that, just change this to outer boundary 3, outer boundary 4. Okay. There's a reason why I have this star here, and you'll see why in a second. So let's work with this for now, and let me go ahead and just move this one back here. And let me go ahead and copy this. Or let me do this. Let me just so that I can reinforce the commands that you're learning. I can do polygon star. Go here like that. Okay. So we have this. Let me change the color to this. Okay, so this is the flat. I'll go back and zoom selected. So this is the flat one. So I'm going to go here. I always duplicate it to keep a reference, right? And so I'll just start lifting each of these up to like 2 feet. So I'll go here and lift that up 2 feet. Let me deselect this, lift this up 2 feet, deselect that, lift it up 2 feet. Okay. Now, the reason why I have this here and this here is because we have options, right? We have an option where we can connect every point of the star onto this, right? That's an option, okay? You can connect every point of the star. Another option is we only do half of the star, because maybe we like to read this geometry versus reading a star geometry. It's a matter of preference, but I want to show you both. So like in this example here, you see how you're reading the geometry here of the star, right? You read the star geometry. But there are occasions where sometimes you don't want to do that. Maybe you want to read half of the star and you get more of like, I guess, this reading here, you know? So if we go back to here, like if we look at it in plan view, let me just hide this for a second. Maybe this is how you want to read it, okay? You don't want to read the complete, like if I was looking up on the ceiling, that's what I want to read. I don't want to read the stars, right? I want to read this geometry instead. I personally like this more than the stars, but I'm going to show you both just so you can understand how to connect geometry. Okay, so we're here, and so we're lifting these up. So we'll do the same method, right? Line, vertical, right? I'm going to just draw vertical lines everywhere, okay? I just want to do it for this quadrant here. And let me just mention one more thing. This outer edge here will be the, how can I say, like the base, right? It'll be like the actual base, like the wall base, the structural wall base. I'll come back to that, but so we have this. So that's my first vertical line, right? Just go ahead and make copies of these. So I'll have a vertical line. Let me turn my center snap off. Here, 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 and here. Very important, okay? This is your half. This is what you're dealing with. This is what you need to model. You need to model this half. You can't just model up to here. You need to model this half so that you can mirror it everywhere. So if I start here, now it becomes a matter of preference of how I want to model this, okay? Like how I want to connect my geometry. So I think the way I'm going to do it is like this. I'm going to connect from here to here, right? And then this is going to connect from here to here, like that. And then this one's going to go from there, like this. And that's going to go here, like that. And that's going to go here, like this. Okay? And then this is going to go here, like that. Okay? And then I'm actually going to add a vertical one here, a 5 foot. You'll see what's going to happen. So let me just go ahead. Copy this. Mid, like that. Okay. So if I go here, control point curve, I'll go from here to here, like that. I can hold Alt my gumball and go like this, okay? Then I can just copy this one here, right? And move that there like this. And I'm going to hold Alt on my gumball. Let me select this point here and go there like that. You see? Sorry. Go to here like that. That's what I want. This piece right here is going to go down like that. Let me show you why. So do you see how you get like this like biped? Or almost, yeah, it's almost like some call it an almond shape that goes in. This is another good example. You see that right there? This piece right here. And then it goes in. Same thing. Go ahead and copy this here. And just move that there, like this. that one will go here, like that. Okay, and then once you do that, you can just start to loft, right? So I can loft this to this, right? And I can loft this to this, okay? I can loft this to this, okay? I'll show you what you can do here. You can loft that to that, loft this to this, right? Loft this to this, loft this to this. Okay. So here you want to sweep these. So if I do a P line, right, I'll do sweep 2, and this is my first rail, that's my second rail, and this is my sweep shape, right? Get that. And then same thing here, just P line. Yeah. Sweep 2. This is my first rail, this is my second rail. Do that. Okay? And then here I'll do planar surface. Okay? So you have something that looks like this. Okay? And then you can just go ahead and mirror this. Just group it for now and mirror. So you get something like looks like that, right? I could have mirrored this as well. Let me just go ahead and mirror this. And so once you do that, you can just start to mirror. You can start to mirror this everywhere. So I can take this one, right, and I can mirror it here, right? And then I can take this one and I can mirror it so that's going to be this diagonal one right here. Like that. You see? I can take this. And mirror like that. If I go to rendered view, that's how it looked like. Okay? And then I'll do the second tier, and then I'll show you the other option, and then pretty much done. Okay, let's work on the second tier. So for the second tier, because the first tier is, I guess, having more of a convex condition, we're going to do like a concave condition in the second tier. So let me just draw a star here real fast. Let me just draw a line. Polygon, star, go from here to here. Press enter, accept the defaults. Change it to green. Okay. So the exact same condition. Let me do line vertical. one at the midpoint here. Okay, let me just sketch out the framework, see if it makes sense. So I'll go from here to there like this, and I could technically go from here to here as well, like that. And I'll go from here to here like this, and that will go to here like that. And I will go from here to here like this, and then from there to there like that. And then this will go from here like this. I'm gonna do it at a different angle. So like this. I could technically also go to here like that, and this can go to there like this, and that can go to there like this if I wanted to. It's a matter of preference. If we look at the first tier, what we did at the flat here, right? At the flat, we went here, here, and here. So we could technically do the same thing where we go here, here, here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it. So I'll do the control point curve, right? I'll go from here, 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 and go from there. And remember, like, you don't have to do it this way. If you want to be very, very accurate and like that historic method of having a very strong flat, you could do arc tangent, right? I could do arc and select T for the tangent, right? And I could go from here and really pick my tangency point, you know, right there. Just press enter. If you want it to have a much bigger flat, right? You want it to look more like this. It's a matter of preference. Because in this day and age, you're probably going to 3D print this, you know, or if you're going to build it, if you're going to create a mold, then yeah, I would say it's really up to you. If you're going to make a mold out of like a 3D print or a mold by hand, it's really up to you then how you want to do it. This, I would actually need a third tangency point. If I do control point curve, let me just show this to you. This is a good learning lesson. If I want a true tangency point with a control point curve, I would have to click 3 times. So I'll do like 1. Let me see. Let me turn my near on. 2, 3, 4, 5, like that, you see? So from this point here down is true flat. If I only go from this to mid to top, then it's not going to be flat until the very end. You see here? You see how I go from this point to this point? It's not flat till the very end. So it's a matter of preference of how you want to model it. But I'm just doing this, you know, just so you understand how to connect geometry. But if you want to get to the technical matters, it's also helpful. So go from here, here, and here. Okay. And then I'll go from here. Actually, I can just take this, hold Alt on my gumball, and go to this endpoint here like that. And I'm going to copy this, right? Go like there. Hold Alt my gumball and go here like that. Hold Alt in my gumball and go here. And I'm going to copy this like that. Go like that. I think I have duplicates here. I'm sorry. I don't know why this is being. The near snap is very dangerous when it comes to being accurate. I have Okay, so that's the network that I have here, right? So I can start lofting. So I'll just loft. I'll loft this to this. Okay. I'll loft this to this. Okay. I'll loft this to this. Okay. I'll loft this to the, oops, like that. Well, okay, I could, I'm going to take that back. I don't want to do that loft. I'm going to loft from here to here. And then from here to here. Loft this curve to this curve. Loft this curve. Nope, nope, nope. I take that back too. Loft this curve. Loft these two curves. Okay. Now, this here and this here, I'm going to do a P line. Just sweep two. The reason why I do this for two reasons. One is just to learn more commands for people who are watching this, but also to make this geometry feel different when you look underneath. So sweep two. Like that. Like that. Okay. So if we look underneath, it's going to look like this. So you're going to start to read the star on here. Let me just change the color of this to OB3. Right? I could have here in this, let me just delete this real fast to show you. I could have lofted this as one piece if I wanted to. So I could have lofted from here to here as one piece if I wanted to make it read like this. But I want it to read faceted. I want it to read faceted. And so this is what I was talking about. In reality, like you could break this up if you wanted to. Let me just go back to this example because it's a really good example. So you see how many ways it's broken up? It's broken up to in a lot of shapes. Like this one, it's taking this in as a piece, right? You go up here. You see this piece here? This is a really good example. Like, do you see how it's taking that in as one piece and going in? It could have split it down like that, but it doesn't, right? This wants to be read as one piece. Even though I can maybe see a slight line there, but that's why I want that to read as a piece. And why I'm doing the sweep too, right? So you're reading that as a piece like that. I think they would call this an almond shape. There's like 5 major shapes when it comes to Muqarnas. It's like you have the square, the rhombus, the almond, the biped, and like the half square. So once we do that, you just start mirroring, okay? So I'll probably fast forward and mirror this stuff because it gets very boring. But I'll just mirror, across the midpoints. I'd like to turn project on sometimes. It just keeps it very accurate. Right, so I'll just take that. Okay, so I went ahead and mirrored it. So that's what you get. You see? Let me change the camera angle here and make it like pretty wide. There you go. It's more dramatic. Right? So you start to read the star. And what some of them do, like some of the actual Muqarnas, what they'll do is they'll actually, so Muqarnas, they say translates to stalactite. Some of them, they'll actually take this bottom face here and they'll pull it down. So it's actually floating kind of. So if I do like move face, for example, or let me just extrude it down. It's probably much easier. They'll pull it down a little bit. like that. So it'll actually be floating, you know? That's what some of them will do. Like where this comes down like this. So you actually like read this star as an object floating. That's what some of them will do. But I really like this example that you see in the one in Uzbekistan, the military in Uzbekistan. I think it's just so beautiful. The one that I prefer, those I actually do not prefer the star pattern. I like the half star pattern. And it's basically the same thing with things that you don't do the actual star pattern. You just stop at the halfway point. But I'll show you how to do that as well. But it's very simple. But yeah, this is the star pattern one. So, you know, again, you see how that's why, again, I'm doing like this biped shape here, or the almond shape, excuse me, because then it helps you read like the completeness of the star. So if we go to the example, right? So like this helps read, you know, this helps read the star shape, and it helps create like a division. And then this is the actual, you see, this here is like the star, like the extrusion of the star, right? Going up. You see? The only difference with this one, though, is that they stopped it at this leg here. And then they started to facet in here. Whereas in the example I'm showing you, I'm taking these all straight up. So at the one in the Rhino example, at this halfway point, that's also going up. And that's also going up in the Rhino example. In this example, it's stopping it here. And the same thing here, you see? It's just taking this face up and going up. Whereas in mine, I'm taking half of it. I'm taking half of the star and going up all the way. Okay, let me show you the other one. Go here. So you see, this is with the star. Let me just duplicate this right here. So in the other option, we don't have the star, right? So let me just go ahead and get rid of this. Get rid of these. Get rid of that as well. Keep this. Right? So in this scenario, we have it so that this becomes like a half, so it becomes like a flat maybe right here. Let me turn my project off. Okay? So how we connect this is up to us. Like we could go from like this point here and this point there, like that, right? And this here and this there, if we wanted to. So let's see how we can connect this. So we can, so let's see how we can connect this. We can go from here to here, and so that's going to be a flat piece, like a flat. And then I can go from here to here to there, like that. So we'll have a piece like this. I'll go from here to here to here, like that. Same thing from here to here to here, like that. Here, like this. You see? This is the one that I like in terms of geometry. Like, I don't want to read this star on the bottom. I like it like this. And I'll show you the final result. Right? So if I loft this to that, you'll get a flat there, right? I loft this to this, that. Loft this to this, right? Loft this to this. Like that. And then loft this like that. And then this will just be a flat plane, right? I can curve Boolean from plan view, or I can just draw a polygon real fast. Planar surface, like that. You see? So it'll read like this instead. Look at the flat. Instead. That's the other option, where you don't read the star, you read it like that. Instead, it reads like this. You see? You might think these like facets are crazy and just intense, but again, if you look at this example, like, you're gonna have lines once the more complex it gets in terms of the overlay of the geometry, you're gonna get a lot of complex facets. But the rule is the same. Again, you want to find a quadrant, and then you just mirror that quadrant. So this is a very intense patterning, but again, it's a mirror of a quadrant, right? So like once you achieve this, it's just a mirror everywhere. You're just mirroring it everywhere. This is the sample pattern. You see? This whole thing is a sample pattern that's just mirrored everywhere. But yeah, within here you're getting, I can't even begin to count the number of breaks that you're getting, you know? But you do have a good number of facets here that are going everywhere. We could simplify some of these facets, but I just like how it looks like this. I like this reading. If this was going to be tile work, then you can have a lot of fun with it. Okay? But once you understand this methodology of like connecting the geometry, you can do any type of muqarnas. It does not matter. Like you just saw how complex we went from something very simple to something very complex. So I'll show you the completed forms for both of these. So like if I go here, let me just zoom out. And again, this was the one we did before, right? So that's the completed form of that. And I'll show you how to turn these into solids, you know, into like actual solid shapes. Let me turn my clipping plane on right here. You see? This is the one where I have it without the star. I just like how it looks without the star. But the reading's going to be very similar on the extruded portion, you know? Let me turn the clip plane on here. This is the one, this was the very first one we did. You know, the very simple one. So as a construction method, they typically corbelled these or they did like a lattice work. Let me just explain what's going on. So they either did like a Corbelling method, right, where they piled up the stones, and then the stones that were in the niche, or you know, if it's like in a mosque, in a mihrab, they would literally carve the stone in at the portion where it's supposed to be carved in, right? So like this would be the actual structural portion here, and then the ornamental portion is going to be what's carved. It's all structural, like this whole thing's structural, because it's all corbelled, right? You're stacking the stones on top of each other until you get the form that you want. And so like each of these are like an actual solid piece. And a real life example, let me just show you a real life example. Like this is a really great example of a corbelled Muqarnas. This is in Turkey. So you see here, let me just zoom in on here. So you see you actually have the stones that are stacking, right? You see how the stones stack? Different lengths and widths and stuff like that. And then they carve it. This is all solid stone. You can even, like, this is like, it's, because of the ruin, you can actually see the actual, like, stone section, right? But this is an actual, like, this is a great example of a corbelled Muqarnas, okay? I mean, these are tiled, okay? So the tile work is different. When you do the tile work, let me show you what's going on. On the tiling, you'll have your vault, right? You'll have like your vault, right? The vault structure, whether the vault is ribbed or not, you know, it depends on the year of the construction. Like in the later, like 16th century, 17th century, the vaulting techniques have become more advanced, or they started to use ribbing. But regardless of the vaulting method, you'll have your vault, and then you'll have like this wooden lattice work here, right? And sometimes they'll be like in vertical as well. And then they'll have like a mortar fill inside. They'll fill this with either mortar or they'll fill it with plaster, okay? If they'll fill it with plaster, what they'll do is then they'll just carve out of it to get like these very dynamic shapes, you know? This will just all be like carved out of plaster. Like this whole thing will be just plastered, and it'll just start carving into it. So you get this shape. And if it's tiling, then they would just do the exact same thing. So they'll have some type of base, like some like wooden lattice base with like a lathe and like stucco, and then they would put the tiling on there with mortar. So as time progressed, you know, a lot of them they'll start doing a lot of like mortar and tile or stucco because it's just easier, right? Because you have all this leftover space. And the lattice work, let me isolate the lattice work so you understand what I'm talking about. So you see they're taking the negative of the geometry so that, oh, okay, the craftsman will know where to connect the geometry to the next. That's what they're doing, right? If I go to, let me see, posted, right? They know how to connect each of the geometries. You see? So that's how the lattice would be, like the actual wooden structural lattice for like the plaster, the stucco, or for the tiling. Now, I want to show you a method of how you can turn these into solid, right? Like if you want to make this a solid piece. Because another method is you have, so this you'll find like a lot in Spain, is these cells. You'll have like these cell structures, right? They call them cells, where they're in these shapes. Again, like, so this shape here is called like a biped, right? You have like a small biped and regular biped, and then you'll have, you know, a rhombus, and then you'll have like almond shapes and stuff like that. So like in Spain, the way that they would do is they would have in these little cells that would like stack up on each other, right? So you would have this as like a little cell piece like that, right? With a thickness and everything like that. You can model it like this if you want to. It's the exact same method I did. The only difference is that you're just giving yourself a little tolerance here, right? That's all you're doing. You're pushing this down and you have a top geometry. But I want to show you a very fast way of how you can model this as a solid all at once, okay? So let's say, let me just turn off these clipping planes for a second. Okay. So let's say we have this right here, okay? This was, you know, the simple version, okay? We'll say that this is like corbelled or something. I'm going to go ahead and just copy it. Let's go over here. Okay, great. I'm going to draw, like, let's say we'll draw like an octagonal base. So I'll do a polygon. Let me hit the center. Let me do project. Hit the center. Okay, so let's say this is my polygon, okay? Let me go to wireframe real fast so you understand some geometries. Okay, so when you're doing the Muqarnas, right, like they have these shapes. These are like rules of geometry in Muqarnas where like you have these shapes, okay? And each time when you overlap the next geometry, it creates a secondary shape as well. And so that's how they create like these cells, like these modules of cells, right? So again, you know, this shape here, they would consider as like a biped, right? This here, they would either consider as like a half rhombus or a half square, depending on the actual dimensions. And then you have like almond. Excuse me, this is not a biped, this is an almond. They would consider this an almond. Excuse me. Yeah, this would be an almond. So that, and they would turn them into like these actual like solid cells and become like little modules that you repeat, right? So if I go here, I did this on project, that's why it's down here. Let's say I'm gonna first start with my base, right? So let me offset 2 feet. Okay. And let me go ahead and offset this out like 1 inch, and you'll see what I mean. Well, let me go offset 2 inches out here. Okay. And then I have this shape here. I'm going to drag it down and hold Alt to make a copy of it and drag it down right here. Okay, cool. So if I take this and this, right, and let me just pull it up to extrude it with the dot, the gumball dot. Okay, I get this, right? We can pretend or assume that this is like a solid piece of stone, right? That's like divided. In real life, you know, this would be divided, okay? And then here and here's another solid piece of stone. Let me just go up. And this would be like this would be the start of the Corbelling process, right? Then you just carry this up. Let me just copy vertical, right? This would be copied up, you know, and so it would be like the start of the Corbelling process where you're making like this thick wall, right? Okay, so I also want to give this a little thickness on top. So if I do move face, right, I want to move this up. I want to make sure my direction constraint is normal. I want to go up maybe like 2 inches, okay? And the same thing here. I'll do move face. Make sure this is also 2 inches. But you can ignore this. This is just like, you know, structural. Okay, so I'll do Boolean difference. So I'm going to select this, right? And then I'm going to select the mirrored patterning that I did, the mirrored Muqarnas geometry, and press enter. Okay. So I can get rid of that. Okay. Let me just hide this. So you see here, this now has become all solid pieces. You see, let me just go over here. Duplicate this. You see? So instead, you could technically model this individually and then mirror the solid. So if I go here, for example, I could technically model this, right, and just start like flipping and mirroring each one individually. You can do that's a method. Or you can just model each one out as a flat surface, and then once you're like actually done with everything, you can go ahead and just cut it all at once, or Boolean difference it all at once by stacking it into modules, right? So let's say like you want to split this into a module, right? So you can do that, right? So if I just draw a line, right, from here, let's do both sides. Like that. Let me just stretch this out. Let me stretch out here as maybe you want a sample piece like this here. You want to split this here, and let's say you also want to split it there as well. Like this. Right, and you could also split it here if you wanted to, but let's just work with this. If I do that Boolean split, there you go. So if we take this piece here, right, so now you have this piece right here, right? And we could split it more. If I drew a line, let me try to turn my project on. Go from here to there. I just like to do this method because it's very fast to model. I'm doing this from a modeling perspective. Even if I was going to like 3D print this, I would still do it the modeling method first and then break up the individual pieces I need, because these would just be repeats, you know, that are rotated every 2. So it's a matter of preference if you want to do the solid method like this. But I always start off as a surface. So I'll always start off, you know, with some type of surface, and then I'll give it a thickness. And that applies to any method you do. You know? So I hope you found this helpful. I mean, this is one of my favorite elements in architectural geometry, is Islamic architecture geometry, Muqarnas. I think it's super fun. It really teaches you about this idea of having complexity within a modulation or within like a very simple system, because this is incredibly complex, but it has a very simple system, right? Like this is really complex, but then, you know, the actual application is quite straightforward, right? Like this looks like, you know, you used Grasshopper, and you can use Grasshopper for this, but I'm just trying to show you, you know, how you can take such a simple technique and really make it very, very complex just with basic mirroring. You just need to understand the actual, you know, the methodology of the Muqarnas, of how you connect geometry and the modules that you get from it. That's it. Once you understand that, you can do any type of geometry you like. So yeah, I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe, because I really want to help this channel grow and just be an open resource for students and for professionals. Thank you.